was question 2? Was question 1? Will it unmute?
It can't unmute.
Yeah.
So,
Question 2. Question. You engage. You engage. You engage with. Link to the stakeholders you engage with. No. To between stakeholders important for you. What else from the last 2 days has been put? Or would you, in the last 2 days, would you take forward? As an organization. Thank you. What gets in the way? Listening to stakeholders, help communicate. All right. So we had, what was her name? Lindy, yesterday, discussing stakeholders. So we want to make a practical, what do we do with it going forward? Because we can just listen, but what can we do about this going forward? And we want to really look at the stakeholders. Just pick 2 to 3 stakeholders that you engage with the organization, why are they important and why, especially on your strategy. And then what else from the last 2 days will you take forward as an organization? Beyond stakeholders, is there something else that you feel you'll take forward? Then what gets in the way of listening to stakeholders better? And what practical actions can you take to overcome these obstacles? So that's just the homework we want you to reflect on. If you can type those on a laptop, we'll present. So just take 20 minutes and then we'll do 5 minutes presentation each, and just so that you have something to move forward with. Number 2 is in relation to anything else, whether it was listening, vulnerability, authenticity. Yeah. Enneagram that you've just listened to. Okay? So we can just take 20 minutes, have a timekeeper so that you take the time needed, and then we can have a conversation on it. It will stay up. Tuko pamoja? Aya.
Now you want me to present Lenny. It's okay. So for the question of can we increase the size a bit?
Is it the internet? You finished?
Yeah, we finished.
Also, just ascending.
Can you increase the size maybe to 125%? Just for those whose prescriptions are not up to date.
So our work as listeners is to listen to the things that speak out to you, the things that you like, right? You can ask clarification questions, but you also want to say, oh, I like that part, keep going, learning from each other. All right?
Good. So for the 2 to 3 stakeholders that we found important for our work and why we said farmers, teachers, and community leaders. We chose them because they are the people that we work most closely with in our programs and people who we are also thinking to work more closely with because of their importance for the work that we are doing. So teachers and farmers, we work with them directly. Community leaders, we have been increasing our collaboration with them. For the question, what will it take? What was the question, Lenny? You've abbreviated the meaning out of the question. Who has the question? Oh, what are some of the things we will take forward as an organization? So it's not just recency bias, but we actually found the discussions today quite impactful and very important and in line with our own efforts. So this question of authentic leadership and active listening were some characteristics that we wish to develop throughout our organization more meaningfully. So that's something we have taken forward. What gets in the way of our listening to stakeholders better? So we have listed 4 things. Maybe you can scroll a bit as I go through the 4. Scroll down a little bit. He's looking at the next one. Okay. So the first one, getting lost in the complexity of the work with the assumption that it will address the interests of the stakeholders and needs, and forgetting to place stakeholders' priorities at the heart. So what does this mean? We have some educational programs that are at the center of all of our activities. And because we have this confidence from previous experience that the activities, when done well, the programs, when they're studied well, will address stakeholders' needs and allow them to bring out their ideas. Sometimes we put too much emphasis on refining the quality of the program, and it distances us from the stakeholders' voices and interests. And it's not that it's not addressing it, but we fail to make the connection clear to the populations we work with at times. Another potential obstacle between us and listening to the stakeholders better is a fear that the presence of too many stakeholders, diverse, we can say, stakeholders, might deviate from the approach that we're taking. So, for example, when you're working with farmers, and then there's this question of, okay, should you also work with the model farmers? Yet the model farmers have a different attitude and sense of their work, and you may need to have separate conversations with those populations. So the fear of those different groups all being in one sometimes is an obstacle for us to adequately listen to all. Over-reliance on informal collection of stakeholder priorities and not enough emphasis on rigorous methods of assessing stakeholder priorities, mapping of stakeholder priorities. So this is something where we have seen that we are continuously in conversations with these various stakeholders. And through our different activities, we can speak very well to what stakeholders' priorities might be or their interests might be. But we sometimes fail, or to a large part maybe at times, we have failed to do rigorous analysis of this. And we rely too much on the anecdotal, that people can explain that, yeah, I've worked with this population, this is what we're hearing. I've worked with this population, this is what we're hearing. And we are seeing the value of maybe still having these rich conversations as a tool, but then mapping those things out in more detail. And lastly, the way stakeholder views have been shaped by other programs and well-meaning institutions. Sometimes we find that the reason we see this as an obstacle to listening is because sometimes what the stakeholders will tell you is what others have told them to think. And we feel that is not an accurate representation of how they might feel at times, because their language is already been shaped and framed by someone else. And we feel that sometimes is an obstacle. So the 2 to 3 practical actions, we chose 3 of the 4 that we mentioned, because the 4th one we feel that we have experience and some understanding of how to address it, that D. And so we chose the ABC as areas that we want to prioritize moving forward, because these are kind of new things for us. So one is really ensuring that we're recentering the stakeholders and how we implement our activities. It's a very simple statement, but it requires deep reflection with all of the teams about maintaining a vision. And the stakeholders are at the heart of the vision. And so we have to ask, okay, you've listed all these wonderful plans for the year and things you're going to prioritize, but let's not forget the goal was to help these farmers to be more scientific in their practice, for example. And how are we identifying what it is that they want to grow in, and how our efforts are addressing those interests. B, learning to work with different stakeholders and different groups in order to tailor our work to their needs. So this is this idea that if we're working with too many stakeholders at once, we feel that can be an obstacle to listening well enough to each individually. And so we have made efforts to work with different populations in different ways, and in ways that are tailored to their reality. So when it comes to education, if we're working in a district, we have to work with teachers, we are working with school administrators, we are working with district education officers. But each one is a different, distinct population that needs special attention, and so we're making sure that we are working with each of these in distinct ways, so that we don't drown out some voices by grouping them all together. And lastly, being more rigorous in how we involve stakeholders in shaping our strategies and implementation of our activities. And so this is really, what are the spaces that we are creating, what are the ways that we are in conversation throughout, our programs, implementation and plans with the people that we are hoping that will directly benefit. Yeah.
They have gone thoroughly in doing this task, and one unique thing that I like about it is authentic leadership and active listening, that they're going to take it home. Yep.
I have loved the intended initiative on prioritizing the needs of the stakeholders, because they are the people they work with. That is outstanding.
Just a small comment. I think they've really done great on question 3. That is exactly what our stakeholders are sorry, the reason why most of the development partners sometimes don't involve stakeholders because of that expectations, but also fears that most of the stakeholders has created on how the development is approached.
Very good. Give them another round of applause. Next is 10 minutes. We are sorry.
This is what happens when you're first, you didn't get to this point.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Yeah, so that is our presentation from TenMet. Can you go next? And that is one of our stakeholders, students, and also this is another stakeholder, the policymakers. Yeah, and
Go back, sorry, I didn't see the first one.
the first one,
No, the first stakeholder.
the first stakeholder, yeah. Yeah, so that's why they're there. And the second one, policymakers, one of our potential stakeholders. Next slide, please. Yeah, we operate in 9 zones. Next slide. Yeah, so going straight to the question, name 2 to 3 stakeholders important for and why. So we have students and teachers. We include them together because they are in the same basket, teacher, student. So they are beneficial directly involved in education processes that are most affected by educational policies and programs. That's why they're there. And another stakeholder is the community, who we believe that they help to ensure long sustainability of programs, because we believe that as we have policies in place, parents in the community, me, you, and others are responsible to make sure that the things are moving. And the third stakeholder is a policymaker. They develop and implement policies, budgets, and laws that guide the operation of education. So these are very important stakeholders that we're working with very closely. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So the next question is, what else from the last 2 days will you take forward as an organization? So one, we will embrace the stages of team development. We all know those stages: forming, storming, and then the rest. Yeah, so, and also we'll improve teamwork and the collaborations. We thought that's very important as a way forward. And also we'll improve communication. So make sure that everybody in the organization knows what is happening, what is next, and all that, so we don't leave anyone behind. Next slide, thank you. Yeah, so what stops you from listening to stakeholders better? For us, we thought it's resources, time constraint, and donor pressure. And what 2 to 3 practical action will you take to overcome these obstacles? So we'll make use of online meetings. If at all the problem is resources, then we won't be able to go to the field physically, so we'll be calling, or we will organize meeting among themselves for them to be able to understand what they need, and then we'll get to understand those. Also include stakeholders' needs assessment during project design, so that we make sure that our project, they answer the needs of the stakeholders, and we do not just implement a project that doesn't have outcome which touch people's lives. So, and the third is to create spaces for stakeholders to speak their own issues to policymakers in meetings and forums. So to have a word from a horse's mouth. So we are not to take the advocacy messages to the policymakers, but we will capacitate the stakeholders to be able to speak for themselves, to meet these policymakers and make a request. Yeah. Thank you.
Go back to those. No, I just wanted to see the connection between them.
Okay.
No, I think it's very obvious and clear the centrality of the stakeholders in the practical actions that they have designed.
I've also liked the appreciation of the team development stages. It's very key.
How directly the practical actions here relate to the challenges identified in the previous slide?
Maybe just a quick thing on the stakeholders, if we could reflect on it. The stakeholders, the first. Yeah, I am seeing students and teachers, and was just wondering how best you can also involve the parents, because the parents and teachers, parents, teachers, and students should be in the same category, and leaving out the parents may not be so much of help.
So basically, we were told to 2 to 3 stakeholders. And then initially, we had students, teachers, and policymakers. And again, we were like, where can we put, like, you know, the teachers? And then again, we were like, where can we put the parents? And because we are dealing with a lot of stakeholders, but it's just told just to confine 2 to 3. And basically, if you're doing stakeholders analysis, students' issues and teachers' issues, they cannot be mixed. So, but we just did that so that, you know, you can just get to have, yes. But thank you for that. We really acknowledge the contribution of the parents, and they're really engaging them as our key stakeholders in our interventions.
Nice question, nice answer. Thank you very much. Amy, did you want to say something? Okay, great. Last but not least, please. Yeah.
So the 2 to 3 stakeholders that we came up with are children and adolescent girls, because these are people that we directly work with, and we feel that they are marginalized and they have limited voice. That's why for us they're very important, and we thought they should come first. And they also have a high interest in our implementations, because they're our primary, by just being our primary target group or beneficiary. So it makes them fall in that category. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Then the other stakeholders that are also close to us are the parents, because they're responsible for nurturing and caring and also making critical decisions on the children's behalf. Because if they say our children are not coming to school, if they say we are not providing midday meals for the children, they don't do it. So it's really important for us to engage them very closely and make them understand some of these things. And then the last one is the lower local government leaders, because we're a grassroots organization, and this makes them very, very important for us. They help us in interpreting the policies to the communities. Most times, there are policies within government that the community members don't understand. For example, we talk about our universal primary education policy. Most of our parents don't understand. If they say UPE, for them they think it is free education. But that's not free education, that's education for all. So that means you're supposed to contribute something. You're supposed to give your children something for them to go to school. So if the lower local government leaders come into the community and then interpret the policies to them and make them understand, it is easy for us to also connect with the parents. And then the government leaders also support us in policy advocacy and sustainability, because usually as civil society organizations, we have projects that have a lifetime, and it's important for us to engage them so that they are able to sustain the gains of the projects. Next slide. So what lessons are we taking forward? During the breakout sessions, we learned about our current way of being as, what was that, farmers? Inclusive farmers. Yeah, our metaphor was inclusive farmers. Our current way of being was inclusive farmers. And that means, yes, we are busy doing the right thing, but then there are no clear roles and responsibilities of who should do what and at what time. So the lesson that we took forward is to practice our new way of being, and we, in the new way of being, we want to work like the bees, the thriving bee colony, I mean, yeah. So we want to work like the thriving bee colony. That means we have clear, defined roles and responsibilities. We have clear set goals per individuals, and the line of communication is also clear. Thank you. And then the last thing that we are taking home is inclusivity in our programming. Yes, one of our values is inclusiveness, but to some extent, sometimes blindly, we don't involve certain categories of people. So going forward, we want to be very critical about the kind of people that we involve in our programming. Next slide. So what gets in the way of listening to our stakeholders better? One, we said that limited knowledge about our stakeholders. Yes, we know that they are this, we know that they are children, we know that they are district leaders, but we don't know how much power they have on the organization or on the projects. We don't know how much interest they have. So, and then we don't engage them appropriately. Sometimes we overshare what we are not supposed to share. Sometimes we under-engage them. So that's why we are saying we have limited knowledge about them. And then fear of their high expectations. In the community where I come from, if you're organizing meetings for the stakeholders, you need to have seating allowance, you need to have fuel or transport for the stakeholders. There is a lot of interest in whatever that we do. So sometimes it's those high expectations, and then the last point of limited resources that we have makes us to kind of boycott them in certain things, yeah. And then what practical actions are we doing to overcome stakeholders' engagement? One, we're going to do the stakeholder mapping so that we understand who exactly we are supposed to work with and why. And then we could also talk to them about mindset change, though this is a big thing, and I wouldn't promise that we will receive the result immediate or in 1 year. It's something that we will keep doing. We have been doing, we will still continue to do, because I would also say that even us, the people who are talking about mindset change, may also need the mindset change. So it's a gradual process, and we'll be patient about it. And then the last one is we will develop a strategic communication framework for stakeholder engagement. And that, I think, is going to help with the line of communication with the stakeholders and who to engage and why. Yeah, thank you for your time.
I hope you will understand Swahili. Nawapongeza kwa kazi nzuri. Okay, so I really appreciate for the great work that you have done. Nawapongeza kwa kazi nzuri. Shikeni hiyo tu. So let's go to the stakeholders. Yeah, there's a place that you have written parents. I think it's important also to put a stroke and add the word guardians, because not every child is having their biological parents. So we recognize and appreciate the African way of having guardians who support in the upbringing of our children. Yeah, and yeah, I also appreciate about the local government leaders. And I was just, okay, I know because we were told it 2 to 3, but I was just wondering in our interventions, you know, we have those traditional leaders, key influential persons in the community that could also be very useful partners that we can work. They could directly in one way or the other impact the interventions and the sustainability of the programs that we work in the community. Asante sana.
I wanted to go ahead to the discussion of the obstacles or the challenges. Yeah, go back. Yeah, what gets in the way? I found that this was a very honest and precise, you know, diagnosis of some of the obstacles, and I could sense the vulnerability there when they talked of the fear of the high expectations and their limited resources to meet those expectations. I really was appreciated that.
I actually suspect politicians also fear those high expectations. Yeah. And it's real. You see you coming in, you're driving, you're nicely dressed, so somehow you remember that damn thing got into your head. Any other comment? Yeah, the last one on the mindset. I like the mindset, of course, because you know, coaches like to change minds. And that's one of the things that, yeah, the last slide had mindset. Yeah, training on mindset change and saying sometimes it's even us who need our mindsets shifted. I liked that because to overcome some of those, we need to start thinking different. The way Joyce was saying on yesterday, how do you think different? Yeah. Right. You've done very well. It's true. Could actually pick snippets from each and combine into one. So we are done for the day. Wow. So we just go around in one day, one word, how the day was for you. Just one word.
Very inspiring.
Engaging.
Educative.
Fulfilling.
A lot of learnings.
So I'm laughing because when you posed that question, he was telling me it's late and the English vocabularies are just... It was worth it, everything. Yeah.
Learning and relearning.
Yes. Timely.
Powerful.
Engaging. Insightful.
Magnifique.
Magnificent.
It's in French. So. Magnifique. Magnificent, but no. It was like fantastic. Yeah.
Illuminate. Illuminate.
Poa sana.
Nice. Exciting for me.
Those are 2 words.
So tomorrow we start at 8:30. Dinner is at 7:30, this same venue. So again, the way Rachel said, clear your things and then See you here with the dances. Yeah.